Hello, hello! Welcome to ClubChrisette. I'm your host, Chrisette, and today we are jumping back into Cursed Site. So when we last left off, Guy, who is our main character, just arrived in East Teria and is now supposed to serve the treasure of the East, Miyon, and he briefly encountered the Belstress Sasa, who seems to be pretty important to Miyon. So without further ado, let us continue on with our story. Well, time to go clean Miyon's room. Keep it cool, Guy. Avoid eye contact and live to slave another day. All right, then. Time to pull these doors open. Miyon opened her mouth the second I entered her room. Her earlier chat with Sasa must have put her in a talkative mood. 3 oranges, one smaller than the others, Miyon said. 2 apples, 4 pears, cold water, 15 incense sticks, 2 half-burned. What? That is some weird grocery list. Are we gonna have to rush to get them? I gave her a blank stare in return. Go on, she said. Her commanding tone scared me into stumbling out of the room. She had no reason to throw such a random list at my face, unless it was to toy with me. I should instead return with 3 pieces of animal turds, 1 from yours sincerely, a bottle of piss, and 3 jars of roaches. He's so mean. I know his situation's less than favorable, but she could kill him. A fellow servant walked by the corridor, and I asked him what kind of drugs Miyon had been taking. The fruits and stuff? Those are for her ritual, the servant said. He shrugged at my confused face. You must be new here, I'm guessing. Miyon regularly performs spells that can change the future. If Miyon truly possessed such a power, that would explain why Loke treasured her so much. Whatever, some fruits, water, and a bunch of incense. Got it. The servant leaned in, as if frightened Miyon might hear from inside her room. Miyon's really fussy about her numbers. You should ask her again and listen more closely. That meant I had to speak with Miyon one more time. Just great. When I walked back into Miyon's room and asked her to repeat the list, as expected, she lectured me about my lack of attention. After picking up my self-esteem off the carpet, I headed out to collect what Miyon had asked for, then returned to place the fruit basket, water bowl, and incense tray in front of her. There, you're welcome. The fruits and incense are placed the wrong way. These are the basics. They said Miyon had cursed sight, right? Maybe I should show her my cursed mouth. A torrent of insults threatened to spew out, but I barely managed to swallow them back in. Oh, Mistress Miyon, please forgive this humble servant for not possessing such common knowledge. I swapped the fruits and incense around because Miyon shown intention of moving them herself. Miyon leaned toward the bowl and whispered a chant. The water began to swirl inside the bowl. Those fruits I had prepared also bounced and rolled inside their basket. Eventually, the entire floor started to shake, forcing me to lean against the wall for support. Maybe I should run from the room, but if this ritual could put my life at risk, Miyon would have warned me about it. Oh, wait. Miyon cared for me as much as someone might worry about a pillow. Silly me. A minute later, Miyon ceased her chants and the fruits finally settled. The floor had also stopped shaking, but my knees continued to quake out of fear. 3 days of rain starting from tonight, Miyon said. That should help the farmers with their crops. I guessed she was predicting the results of her ritual. Miyon slipped a hand under the veil to massage her temple. Her lips looked as pale as her sweat-stained cheeks. I pointed at the bowl of water sitting before her. Maybe you should take a sip. It'll make you feel better. Miyon rubbed her temple harder, as if my words had worsened her headache. This sacred water belongs to the goddesses. Learn some respect. Actually, I had filled that bowl from a tap in the kitchen. Fine, so Miyon had powers, but that gave her no right to mock me. Next time I should scoop up some toilet water for Miyon and her goddesses. Just as I considered arguing back, someone knocked on the door. That must be Sasa! Miyon leaped to her feet, spilling the bowl of water. I guess those goddesses she spoke of would have to lick that sacred water off the carpet now. Miyon yanked the doors open, and on the other side stood Sasa. A lady should act more gentle, Sasa chuckled, patting Miyon's hat. As Miyon pulled Sasa into the room, once again, Sasa and I crossed gazes. No need to worry about him. He's new here, Miyon said. Sure, just treat the new guy like one of those lanterns hanging around the veranda. Servants had no feelings or anything, right? Sasa grinned. Lucky you, Miyon. He has a pretty cute face. My face heated up like, well, one of those lanterns hanging in the veranda. Like I said, girls really annoyed me sometimes. Miyon puffed her cheek. He's so silly, though. Just now, he asked me to drink the sacred water. Sasa was the first person to smile at me in this temple. I wanted nothing more than to give her a good impression. Thank you, Miyon. Bless you for crushing my one and only dream. Sasa tapped a finger over her lip. Oh my, drinking the water is forbidden? I had no idea either. How foolish of me. Miyon waved her hands nervously. That's not foolish. I mean, I guess. It's understandable, I think. As I giggled at the sight of Miyon flustering, Sasa gave me a wink. This lady and I would get along just fine. Sasa lowered onto her knees and Miyon climbed onto her lap before resuming her ramble. I saw a roach in my room this morning. It was orange, I swear. I tried catching it so I could show you, but it flew out of the window. Sasa pulled a comb out from her pocket and used it to straighten Miyon's pigtails. Girls shouldn't be running around picking up bugs. Did you catch them when you were little? Miyon asked. Well, yes, I did. Oh, Miyon continued. I also heard King Look singing in the toilet yesterday. It was really funny. Sasa nodded and gave occasional replies as Miyon continued to flap her gums. Miyon let out a few yawns while she talked. She had put a hand over her mouth to hold them back, but each yawn came out louder than the last. Sasa massaged Miyon's shoulders. The king told me you had to perform a ritual today. You better get some sleep. Miyon climbed off Sasa's lap and shook her head. I must admit her pouting face made my heart stir. Just a little, mind you. Sasa rose and put her hands onto her hips. A girl needs her beauty sleep. She shot me a glance. That's how you make boys fall for you. Who needs boys? Miyon clung onto Sasa's arm. I'm going to marry you, Sasa. Sasa rubbed her forehead against Miyon's ear. Stop being silly and go to sleep. I fell for your cute act last time, but it's not happening again. Miyon let out a whining noise that made me want to hug her. Eventually, she relented and gave a nod. I took that as a signal for me to pull the blanket out of the closet. Of course, she scrunched her lips at me for trying to help. Sasa tucked Miyon into bed and held her hand until she fell asleep, which only took about a minute. Those rituals must really take a lot out of her. With Miyon asleep, I puffed my chest out to try and look manly. Let me escort you to the temple gates. I hated my voice for cracking as those words came out. Oh my, what a gentleman. Sasa pinched me on the cheek. Her fingers felt so slender and warm. I wonder if she'd let me sit on her lap, too. As I guided Sasa through the corridors, the silence gnawed at me, and I tried to strike up a conversation. You know about Miyon's eyes. I heard they're cursed or something. Not sure if it's real or not, though. Dear voice, please, stop cracking for just one sentence, please. It's real, Sasa said. Anyone who gazes into her eyes will die on the same week. Her parents were the first victims. Oh my god. I had a feeling she didn't have, like, a mom, but I didn't know King Loke was actually not her dad. I was hoping Sasa would laugh at me for believing such a myth, but now I regretted asking at all. Boy, I sure knew how to charm the ladies with my choice of topics. I should have talked about how those garden flowers were no match for her beauty. Sasa spun around to face me. Miyon never asked for those flowers. Please treat her like you would anyone else. She cupped my hand in both of hers. Her voice sounded softer than usual, and her serious tone forced me to nod. As Sasa looped her arms around me, her aroma and warmth made my head swirl. If Miyon wanted to marry Sasa, she'd have to fight me first. That's all I ask, Guy, Sasa said, the first person to smile at me in Eastraria, and now the first person to address me by name, too. Just 10 more years until I become an adult. Please, Sasa, lock yourself in a time capsule and wait for me. Sasa let go of me, and as we resumed walking, she donned a smile that outshone the lanterns hanging overhead. If I had known it would snow, I would have worn more clothes. When Sasa said those words, I surveyed up and down at her clothing. Her eyes narrowed at me. Did your mind just go in the gutter? No. I peered out at the snow to hide my red face from Sasa. Considering the cold weather, I should have known it would snow once in a while. Whenever it snowed back home, I used to build snowmen and stick carrots on top for the nose. If I dared to steal a carrot here, the guards might cut off my finger and use that for the snowman's nose instead. There's the gates, I said. Good night, Miss Sasa. Sasa slapped me across the back. Cut that miss stuff out, but good night, Guy. She's so cute! Sasa dropped by again a week later, and I just happened to be cleaning Miyon's room at the time. I secretly pumped my fist, feeling luckier than someone finding a bag of gold in the urinal. Miyon rested her head on Sasa's lap, smiling as Sasa waved the bells on her wrist to produce a melody. I would consider burying the cursed site for a day if it meant I could swap places with Miyon. For now, I pretended to wash this wall for the 15th time in the past hour. If I kept scrubbing, the wall might turn into glass. I wanted to spit at the wall just so I had an excuse to wipe it again and stay in Sasa's presence. Look at what I got you, by the way. Sasa pulled out a bell from the bag sitting beside her. The jewelers adorning this bell glittered under the lantern's glow. Miyon rose to her knees and accepted the bell. After giving Sasa a hug, she waved the bell and listened to it jingle. Sasa turned to me with a smug face, and that's how you win a girl's heart. I like Sasa. My pulse raced every time Sasa spoke to me. I rambled off a response to hide my nervousness. Right, cool bell. Oh my god, that's such a lame response. Sasa and Miyon shook their heads, as if to say boys would never understand. Miyon then said to me, You were supposed to be washing the dishes half an hour ago. Dear Miyon, thank you for exposing me, making my face redder than those apples I always collected for you. Way to try and keep Sasa to yourself. Do they sew those bells in town? Miyon asked Sasa. Yes, and all kinds of other things. You should check it out sometime, Sasa said. Miyon lowered her head. King Loke would never allow it. Now I knew why I'd never seen Miyon leave the temple. Even I was allowed to go out shopping once a week. Let's sneak out tonight, Sasa said. Ooh, troublemaker. Miyon squeezed her dress. You'll get in trouble if we get caught. Just for half an hour, Sasa winked. If you fear the consequences, you'll never get anything done. I can look out for the guards or something. As soon as those words left my mouth, I regretted them. Sure, I wanted to impress Sasa, but not if I had to sign my will in the process. Sasa knitted her brows. That's sweet, guy, but I refuse to get you in trouble. Just leave it to me. Oh, okay, cool. I knew not what else to say. Sasa's words reminded me that I was a mere slave, as if I had the right to make any calls. Hey, want to go water the plants with me? Sasa asked, making my heart thump. Oh, I could see it now. She and I would reach for a water spray at the same time, causing our fingers to touch. In time, our love would blossom, just like the flowers we watered. Sasa is asking me, Miyon said. Oh. Her lips curled like a slice of watermelon. Miyon grabbed Sasa's hand and dragged her out of the room. I guess Sasa was referring to those plants in the main hall. Should have known she was the one watering them. No way would it have been some guard singing to himself as he sprinkled the petals with the spray. Ugh, the image made me want to throw up. But oh, Sasa, never before have I met a maiden with such a pure heart. Let me dream up some poems about her while I went to wash the dishes. That night, a fellow servant bullied me into doing his groceries. I dashed across Melody Way, bumping into more villagers than I could count. One of them threatened to hit me, but I claimed to be his king's favorite servant, and he left me be. None of that mattered now. I needed to know how Sasa and Miyon's mission turned out. Neither of them had appeared on Melody Way. I took that as a bad sign and prayed I had simply failed to spot them among the crowd. Still, at least I should have been able to hear their ringing bells as they walked by. Right now, I could only hear a drunk guy in the corner yabbering about his premonition of East and West Taria going to war. As I bought some pears and checked off the last item on my shopping list, the grocery lady said I needed a shower. All this running around did leave me drenched in sweat, but whatever. I ran back to the temple, only taking short breaks when my lungs threatened to explode. Back at the temple at last, after sparing a moment to catch my breath, I dumped off my groceries and trotted straight for Miyon's room. Oh shoot, I didn't read that line. I'm sorry, guys. This is why I was against it! The doors muffled Miyon's words, but I could still hear her erratic breathing. What's going to happen to you? I've known King Look for many years. It'll be okay, Sasa said. As I heard Miyon's sniffles, I felt as if someone was pinching my heart with tweezers. The guards must have caught Miyon and Sasa in their act then. I should have helped, even if it meant displeasing Sasa. Instead, I obsessed over how I could impress her by obeying her every word. Well played, guy. Well played. I reached for the doors, but guilt caused me to pull back. Miyon would have hated to have me see her cry anyway. The memory of Lok passing on that death sentence had given me several nightmares of myself on a guillotine. Now Sasa must answer to the king. The possibilities almost made me forget how to breathe. I like these little intermission pictures. Oh, never mind. Well, I do like them. They're very pretty. I really did like that chibi version of Sasa, though. Switch with me, I said to the servant who had been assigned to broom the king's chamber. The servant murmured something about following the rules. I dug my nails into her shoulders and leaned in close enough to touch her nose. Sasa's in there with King Lok right now. If anything happens to her on your watch, I swear, I don't know what I'll do. Okay, let's swap then. The servant's eyes started to water. Only then did I realize I had been shaking her. Once I let go, she handed me the broom and shuffled off. Damn it, I had better go and apologize to her later. A sleepless guy had always been too grumpy for even his own liking. After slapping my cheeks to wake myself up, I headed into the throne room. Sasa sat on her knees before Lok, who, as always, remained hidden behind his curtain. Perhaps this separation was what allowed him to issue those death sentences so heartlessly. Or maybe he just had no heart at all. I insisted on taking Miyon outside. The blame lies solely with me, Sasa said, her head lowered at the undeserving king. Despite her predicament, not once did she stumble on her words. That was the Sasa I knew and loved. "You've no need to defend Miyon. I'd never bring harm to our nation's mightiest tool," Lok said. A tool, he said? I squeezed my hands against the broom, wincing as several splinters dug into my flesh. Miyon sensed joy whenever Sasa paid a visit, then loneliness after she left. A tool could never comprehend such feelings. "Sasa, you too are of good use to me. Our guests are rather fond of your performances," Lok grunted. "I'll let things slide this time, but your next blunder shall be your last. Know that you're replaceable like the rest." Oh my god. Lok, you have made the right choice, I thought, but my shaking knees reminded me of my helplessness. If the king ordered for Sasa's beheading and I tried to interfere, he might force me to pull the guillotine lever just for laughs. After bowing at the king, Sasa rose and spun to leave the room. Our eyes met, but she exited without saying a word. To Lok's knowledge, Sasa and I had nothing to do with each other. Probably best for things to stay that way. For the first time, I stood alone in the chamber with Lok. Though he said nothing to me, I still felt my palms sweating up. I swept the carpet as fast as I could, praying Lok would afford me no attention. My king, nothing beat a nap under the morning sun. Why not give it a try rather than wasting your royal saliva talking to the likes to me? With my cleaning done, I managed to escape the chamber unscathed. Sasa stood in the corridor with her back pressed against the wall, both of her hands cupped over her chest, finally betraying a hint of her anxiety. The sight of Sasa flustered made me frown in disappointment. Nothing ever seemed to stir Sasa, and I had hoped for this image of her to remain untainted. I wanted to punch myself for having such a selfish wish. When Sasa noticed me, she smiled to act tough for my sake. She bent down and stretched to my cheek. Yet right now, in my eyes, she looked as small as a kitten. I imagined she might cry alone in her room later, but I lacked the courage to speak up about it. "Tell Miyon I'm okay," Sasa said, still smiling. "And how about you?" "Really, I'm fine, silly. There's no need to look so pale." Now that she mentioned it, my cheeks did feel cold. An outsider like me ended up being more scared than someone directly involved. This must be the difference between a kid and an adult. "You're amazing," I blurted out and immediately blushed. Sasa patted my head. "Why would you think that? You always know how to act and you never say the wrong thing." "That is the furthest from the truth," Sasa chuckled, and her soft tone told me she was hiding something. Whatever it was, I sensed asking her would be like crushing a wagon into a brick wall, and I would rather keep our relationship dent-free. Sasa no doubt had questions for me as well. Every serpent had a dark past to hide, yet Sasa never forced it out of me. I still had so much to learn from her. "If only you could rule his nation, Sasa. I'm sick of serving a king like that," I said. Sasa tapped a finger over my lips. "Watch your words when you're in the temple." I nodded and Sasa lowered her finger. "People are more complex than you think, Guy. King Loke once had a kinder heart. I imagine Loke helping elderlies cross the street and feeding food to the poor, but that seemed about as likely as Miyon offering me praise for my work. When I first started performing, I played in clubs that paid me with bronze, some nothing at all, Sasa said. King Loke discovered me and hired me into the temple. I'll always be grateful for that. Are you sure we're talking about the same guy? He's been through more than you might think. Never try and read another person's mind. Sasa bumped her forehead against mine. Let it go, guy. Enjoy being a kid while you're still one. Sasa extended her hand. I coiled my fingers around hers, and she let me hold her hand all the way up to the temple entrance. Sasa's hand felt cold, even by Eastarian standards. Look must have drained all the warmth out of her. I squeezed her fingers in hopes of warming her a touch, and she beamed at me in return. Though Sasa had told me to enjoy childhood, I wish I could transform into an adult tomorrow. Being surrounded by all these grown-ups made me feel as useful as a shattered lantern by the wall. Alrighty, everybody. I think that's what we're going to call it for now. The story is starting to pick up pretty fast. We're diving into the different characters a little bit, particularly Sasa. I think she's supposed to be like the default route that we're supposed to go down, assuming that, or be our default ending. But I'm hoping we can get to the point where we can start learning more about Miyon as well. Her powers apparently involve rituals that can benefit people and change the future. So I'm very curious to learn more about that as well, and, you know, Miyon and Sasa's relationship. But alrighty, everybody, I'd like to hear your comments down below. Which character's your favorite so far? What do you think of Guy? Like, I know he's like 10, but I mean, he's particularly not very likable in my opinion. Well, not yet. Like, I'm sure he'll redeem himself later. But I'd like to hear your comments down below and see what you guys have to think as well. Who's your favorite character so far? What do you think happened to Loke? And how do you think he discovered Miyon, like her powers and the like? I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say. But alrighty, everybody. Until next time, you'll have a lovely day. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!